that being said, let's jump into it. We'll start off with the Buffalo Bills. Last year, they were 13-3. Vegas odds have them at 10.5, so Vegas still likes them as one of those few teams with the double-digit victories. Last year, they were 14th in passing attempts, 8th in passing yards, so they were very efficient in passing. They were 20th in rushing attempts, so they were down lower middle of the pack for rushing. However, they were 9th in yardage, and that's due to the 700-plus yards from Josh Allen, as well as the 7th in yards per game due to Josh Allen's rushing ability too as well. So don't be fooled by those numbers. And you look at the yardage and you look at yards per game, because a lot of that factors into what Josh Allen could do with his legs. Speaking of Josh Allen, he's going 18th overall as a QB2. He was on pace at one point last year to be the QB1 before he had that shoulder injury or elbow injury. I think it was elbow. And after that, he kind of fizzled out, and all the deep downfield targets started to go down too. So obviously, with any quarterback, injury is something that will completely tank a season. Luckily, it didn't tank Josh Allen's season. If you had him last year, he fought through it. It just hurt a lot of people, like Stephon Diggs, especially Gabe Davis, I think, took the biggest brunt of it all. So moving forward, in my opinion, I like him as a possible quarterback one finish again this year. He was QB2 last year. Pat Mahomes outbeat him, but not by much. I think it's really between those two guys neck and neck and who's going to be the QB1 final. So he's good for about 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, and another 700 yards and about 6-7 touchdowns on the ground. What is the round? Is this a quarterback that you would be willing to take in the first round? I know a lot of people don't like quarterback first round, but are you going to trust him as a first round pick over Pat Mahomes if you're on that 11-12 turn? Which one would you rather go with?
No, typically I'm not going to draft unless I really – the only year I think I drafted a quarterback in the first round was Peyton's record-setting year.
Correct.
When he went to Denver. Other than that, I'll get the next guy in my tier to avoid having to draft a guy in the first round. It's why I've never had Mahomes on my team. It's not why I never had Allen on my team. I think they're going a little bit too high for my liking. I think I can get a guy that's going to be of the same value in the third or fourth round if I really wanted to go quarterback in the high end. Allen, I think, is worth it for a second round pick. I mean, if you are one of those teams that you go and stack a running back, or if you're late in the draft, I mean, you can do the Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen on the turn and stack those two guys. I think it's a good play. Josh Allen had 3 games last year outside of the top 10 quarterback finish. 3 games. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I think, the first 6 weeks of the season, QB 2, 4, 4, 5, 1, 3. He had top 5 finishes in each of the first 6 weeks of the season. Then he had a bye week, and then the 11, but then 3, 6, 18, 1, 14, 9, 2, 4, 35, 3.
Yeah, he only had 3 games outside the top 9 in terms of finishes. So
crazy.
But
is he worth it? Yeah, because the rushing upside and the way he throws the ball downfield. Yeah, and you could say last year he probably could have had better numbers if they had a legit number 2 on the other side. I mean, we had a disappointing season from Gabe Davis. They really had no other pass catchers there. Where Dawson Knox was hurt for a big portion of the season last year and just didn't produce. But you've seen why running backs are not valuable in this system is because he's the running back.
Yeah, he's the RB1.
He's the RB1. And he gets all the goal line work. So the touchdowns are there. The yardage is there. He has some weapons around him. I think it would have been a lot scarier, he would have been a lot scarier of a pick if, coming out of last season, Stephon Diggs had some issues, took some time away from the team. But as Diggs didn't come back, then I'd be a little concerned. But the fact that Diggs is there still, then he got some other weapons there now too. So I still like Josh Allen. I think 2 is a good spot for him.
Yeah, well, here's the only note that I will have to say about Josh Allen when you're looking at him versus Jalen Hurts and Pat Mahomes is Josh Allen had 24 points per game in standard and PPR. Obviously, they're the same, but in a 6-point touchdown league, he was 24 points per game. Jalen Hurts was 25.5 points per game, and Pat Mahomes was 25 points per game. So he was a whole point per game less than those two guys, but he finished higher than Jalen Hurts in QB finish because of some of big explosion weeks. And again, that was with that elbow injury that he sustained week 9. So the first half of the season. And we'll get to the wide receivers when we get down to that portion of it and really talk about how that affected the wide receivers, because I think they were the ones that took the biggest hit, because his depth of target and on each attempt went down on top of that. So he wasn't throwing the ball downfield and as accurate and as effectively, which hurt a lot of these receivers. So now you're saying that, and I agree with you, Josh Allen is the RB1. But when you look at the running back room here, the RB1 amongst the running back rooms, what it's looking like so far is going to be James Cook. He had first reps yesterday in the preseason game. He ended up having 20 yards on the ground and an 8-yard touchdown to cap it off. He went with the first teams. He looked good. He didn't really get any pass catches or targets. He wasn't really used that way, which was interesting, but I think it was more or less not the game plan for him in preseason for week 1. But last year, he didn't have a high finish, obviously, because the volume is so low for this running back field, and he was splitting it with Devin Singletary. However, he did have a 5.7 yards per carry average, which is stellar for a running back on 91 carries. He also had 21 receptions. It really wasn't until week 13 that he actually had more than a 40% snap percentage. Before that, he was around the 20s or teens for snap percentage in games as a rookie, which is expected when you're not, first round running back rookie. I think, and that's where he showed up, was those week 13 on is when he had his best games and best finishes. Where do you like to take him? He's going 76th overall right now as RB 32. Do you think that's value and that's like cheap for a guy like this?
No. I mean, listen, he could be a top 25 guy, but I think he's going to end up in the 20 to 25 range. I know a lot of people are calling for a breakout season from Cook, but there's a lot of things in his way. Josh Allen, number 1. Number 2 is the fact that they brought in Damian Harris, a skilled veteran, especially at the goal line. And I think that even though Cook is going to get a majority of the work, Singletary had a majority of the work the last 2 years and was just as efficient. He was averaging over 5 yards a carry as well in this offense. I think Cook is going to lose some touches in the receiving game. They have a deep backfield here, with Damian Harris, Latavius Murray, Naheem Hines. They got some guys here on this team. Cook is he's obviously head and shoulders number 1, but is he worth a top 20 running back position to draft when there is a lot of uncertainty? If you're losing 50% of your red zone touches to both Damian Harris and Josh Allen, are you really worth that high of a draft pick? And that's my question and that's why I probably wouldn't draft him high up is, all right, let's say his touchdowns are sub 8. He has, under 8 touchdowns. He's going to need to run for over 1,000 yards. And I think he can do that. But my questions are, the touchdowns. I don't think he can post a top 15 finish without those. And if he's going to lose a lot of them to both Allen and to Harris, then that's exactly where I would draft him.
Again, I mean, he's going 76th overall, so that's 8th round, early 8th round. To me, that's still a value. If he's finishing if he's finishing on right at the 20 running back 20 range, and you're going to get 800 to 900 rushing yards from him, you're going to get a couple more through the air, and maybe finish with like 6 total touchdowns. Like that's a flex play where you're drafting a flex play at that point.
Oh,
unless you punt running back and this is your RB2, that's, to me, I would call it a riskier RB2. There's a couple others that are in the round before him in round 7 that I'd rather go with, just because you have more consistency and more touchdown equity in some of those other guys.
Oh, for sure.
So, and you mentioned Damian Harris, Latavius Murray. They're going running back 41 and 82 respectively. Damian Harris obviously is going to get the first chance off the bench there, but apparently in the training camp so far, Latavius Murray has been the ones that have been turning heads and lighting up the end zone for the Bills during training camp when he's in there. So I'm not saying draft either one of those guys. I think somebody's going to try and draft Damian Harris just because where his ADP is. To me, it could be a crapshoot. It could be either one of these guys that takes that role that Singletary had and that role that Moss had before he was traded. And you mentioned Naheem Hines. Let's not forget he's out for the season after that jet ski accident.
Yes.
So he is not going to be a factor here. They did not add anybody of worth. Actually, they added Latavius Murray. That's the guy they added. But they didn't add anybody else to this backfield besides that. So let's jump into the receivers. Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. And then there's a kind of a mixed bag between Shakir and Trent Sherfield. So obviously Stephon Diggs
some other
last
guys
year
there too that we can talk about. We saw some good performances yesterday in the preseason game from some of the guys deeper down the depth chart that are fighting to make the team.
Yeah, and we'll go over target values, target percentages. Like you could look at all that stuff. It really doesn't matter with the Buffalo Bills. This team passes a lot, obviously. And they do a lot of plays. It's a fast-paced offense, so anybody's going to get their chance in here. I'll say my opinion on why I don't like anybody outside of the first two as being a consistent play. But that being said, Stephon Diggs last year finished as the wide receiver 5. He's going as a wide receiver 5 this year, 10 overall. He had an opportunity to finish as in top 2 till the week 9 injury to Josh Allen when him and Gabe Davis started taking a hit to their receiving totals, targets, and volume, and honestly receptions, because I think a lot of it was just off targets. His depth of target went down. The route trees were changed because it had to go coincide with what Allen was able to throw confidently. So that being said, he still had 7 100-yard games last year. I mean, that's what you're looking for your wide receiver 1 if you're going to draft one. This guy is the dark horse to be the wide receiver 1 overall this year and battle the likes of Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson for total yardage. And plus, he is the touchdown guy for this team. Like Justin Jefferson is and Tyreek Hill. Actually, Tyreek Hill had less touchdowns than Jalen Waddle did last year through the air. So I like Stephon Diggs. I think I'm okay if you want to draft him above Tyreek Hill. I definitely think above Devontae Adams. And at this point, if you want to draft him above Cooper Kupp, I'm perfectly fine with somebody doing that too as well, because this guy's got equity as the number 1 wide receiver here. It's what you're looking for as the main guy, the big kahuna.
Yeah, he's the one wide receiver in the next 5. So he's like the because he's outside of our top 5 ranking.
Yes.
So he's the guy in the 5-10 that if anyone had him ranked in the top 5, I would not have an issue with, because he has all. Yeah, I would completely agree with that sentiment, because he has all the makings and the production and the volume in the offense to have those kind of numbers. So yeah, I think in most drafts he's fallen down to the back end of the first round, which if he is, go and hit the smash button. I still take him over AJ Brown. I still take him over CD Lamb. So that next group of guys, he's right there. So yeah, I mean, I really like him. I think he's worth a first round pick. I don't think anyone has any concern. Right? He's had the production in the past, and he's going to be a wide receiver 1 in the league.
Yeah. Well, the beauty of where he's going is you can actually grab him in your first round pick if you're pick 11 or 12, and you can go grab Josh Allen, and you can go right ahead and pair the two of them if you really wanted to. I know that's something that people want to try and do, but I'm not saying that you always want to pair your wide receiver and your quarterback and get the two, because it doesn't always work out. But that's two that you can guarantee are going to put up pure volume and pure numbers. But I will say with him, we have him just outside our top 5. I could be coerced, and even in doing our final rankings, I could bump Devontae Adams out and him into the 5 spot too, because of the outlook that he could possibly have. Could be higher than Devontae Adams. It's just, if you're looking on purely at what a wide receiver is too, Devontae Adams I think is still a better receiver than he is overall. You flip-flop teams, and Devontae Adams is a superstar in Buffalo. So
yeah.
So Gabe Davis is a wide receiver 2 here on the depth chart and has been for the past couple seasons. Last year, he kind of had a fall from grace. He ended up at wide receiver 24. Everybody was drafting him super high. I think they were drafting him like 4th round and 5th round. And right now he's going 99 overall, wide receiver 35. He's the one who took the biggest hit after the elbow injury week 9 because he was the guy that took a lot more downfield shots and jump balls from Josh Allen during the games. And he lost those when that happened. And I think that's where you got to take a look at what happened in the season and not necessarily just the output numbers. I think he's going at a value for a team that is successful through the air, and I'd be looking to snag him as an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, where he's going, that value is great because you're getting a number 2 on one of the better passing offenses in the league. So, yeah, go and get him. And it's not like, we just got finished talking about Stephon Diggs, but it's not like Stephon Diggs is hyper-targeted. The ball is spread out. The problem is, and this is the big problem with Buffalo, is a lot of the touchdowns come in the ground game. And whether that being a running back or whether that being Josh Allen himself. So you lose a lot of those red zone targets. I'll say this about Gabe Davis. He needed to be more consistent last year, and he had kind of the Debo effect on him. Right? We saw like a 4 or 5 game stretch of him, especially in the playoffs in 2021, where he just went off. And everyone was like, oh, look, what he finished the season off this way. He's going to come into the next season. And we saw the ADP skyrocket to the 4th round. And just based on expectation that he's going to come in and be the number 2 there. I think there's, outside of Diggs, the next 3 guys that are pass catchers in this offense, they're gonna go at value, and I would go and grab any one of them. It's like we've always said. It's like, would you rather have the number 3 on a top 5 passing team, or do you want the number 2 on the Titans? Right. So
yeah.
I mean, Gabe Davis and Treylon Burks are a round apart in terms of drafting, and I'd probably still rather have Gabe Davis just on potential.
Well, if you look at the numbers for Gabe Davis, he had a wide receiver 13 finish, a wide receiver 1 finish, wide receiver 11 finish, all in the first 6 weeks. So 3 top 11 finishes out of the first 5 games because he missed week 2. So he didn't even play week 2. Then they had a bye week 7, came back week 8, had 7 targets, 2 catches. It was kind of a dud game. And then the elbow injury week 9 against the Jets to Josh Allen. He only had 1 top 11 finish again, and that was week 10 against Minnesota, where he had 6 for 93 and a touchdown. After that, he sprinkled in 2 more touchdowns. It wasn't until Josh Allen probably felt healthy in that wild card game against Miami where he posted a 113 and a touchdown for there. But you look at that, and it just shows you that he just fell off the shelf. He had a great start to the season. It was looking like he was a great wide receiver 2 pickup. And so for some people, they're wide receiver 1 if they went running back heavy last year's draft. And then it just the elbow injury to Josh Allen just hurt him immensely. And I'm going into this season the same way I was going into last season with him. I like him in that 4th, 5th round, but he's not going there, and I can get him for cheaper. I'm even happier at that point. That's the beauty of him this year. Now, there is a couple other wide receivers here on this team. Like we said, Shakir, Sherfield. You have Andy Isabella's on this team now. Keyshawn Johnson, not to be confused with the Keyshawn Johnson. So there's a lot of people here on this team. The reason why I know Trent Sherfield has been your sleeper pick, and I'll let you, gloat and talk about him as much as you want. And before we get into that, Dalton Kincaid has been a darling for the Buffalo Bills this preseason. He's been all the talk of the town. It took him how many weeks of almost 2 weeks of practice before he dropped the pass, and he played with the ones last night. Played in the slot for a couple snaps as well. So what I think is, a player like him is going to eat into these wide receiver 3's numbers more than they would have in the past. But that's just my opinion. That's what I think, and I think both him and Dawson Knox, there may be some more 2 tight end sets than we ever had seen before in Buffalo because they have 2 guys that finished. I mean, Dawson Knox was tight end 9 last year with 6 touchdowns and over 500 yards. It's not like they're just going to put him on the shelf just because they drafted a tight end where they got him. So let's talk about those other receivers and your thoughts on these guys before we get into Knox and Kincaid. like, who do you like out of the rest of that group? Who's the next man up that you could see if Gabe Davis starts to just flutter?
Well, Shakir is kind of the guy that's on the third on the depth chart right now. I think people, especially in Buffalo, have been waiting for him to kind of emerge, but then they go and get Sherfield, and there's just something about Sherfield, and watching him play in Miami, going to Buffalo, a division rival, so he knows he's playing against the same defenses. He just flip flops as Buffalo for Miami. He's been a playmaker his entire career. He just doesn't get the volume, and he's in the same situation here where, like, I think he's just not going to get the volume enough. But here's what I'll say about the next kind of guys. If you want to go and draft Shakir over Sherfield, if you want to go take a late round flyer on Isabella or Aitman, go ahead. Like 14th, 15th round, go ahead and snag one of these guys up on the bench. I guarantee you there's an injury that happens this year, and one of these guys is going to step up and be the top priority ad on waivers. Because if anything happened to Diggs, if anything happened to Gabe Davis, someone's going to need to fill the void there. And you're right, they added Dalton Kincaid, and they still have Dawson Knox, and that's going to eat into the targets. But we're talking about a top 5 passing offense. I don't care. Take the tight ends. I mean, like, you look at Minnesota, right? When we love Hawkinson, right? We love Jefferson, right? But we still also really like Jordan Addison. We like KJ Osborne. So there's 4 targets there that we like, that it doesn't matter if they're going to get hyper targeted or hyper volume. Like, Justin Jefferson is going to eat 180 targets this year. So I'm not too concerned about that. And I think, as Josh Allen ages, right? And, he's still a young guy in the league, but as he ages, they're probably going to ask him to run less.
But here's the difference between that Minnesota team and Buffalo. Buffalo was 14th in passing attempts last year. Minnesota was 3rd.
Yes.
There's a massive difference in the amount of attempts that they had, and I'll pull the numbers up in a second. But that's the difference. There's a lot more with the mouths to feed in Minnesota. They're able to do it because the amount of attempts that Kirk Cousins has, and I think those attempts even go up a little bit more because you don't have Dalvin Cook there.
Sure.
Versus in Buffalo here, I could see them still finishing in that, between the 10th and 14th, just outside the top 10 in passing attempts, because of the amount of rushing that Allen does, and they do have a decent running back as well. So I think it's a numbers game at that point. That's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm probably not drafting, Sherfield, Shakir, or any other receiver outside of Davis and Diggs inside the 13th round. But you're talking 14th, 15th round. If you already have your defense, your kicker, if you're still in leagues that do those, and you just want a flyer on a guy late, why wouldn't you want to take a flyer on a guy that is in this offense? That's my point in that. It's not saying go and draft these guys. It's not saying they're going to completely blow up and outperform their ADP, but it's more of they're good enough to be a top priority waiver ad. So why not get them early in the season? Because if they're going to sit on your bench, you're not drafting someone in the 14th round to start your team.
Yeah, no, it was actually 98 more attempts for Minnesota than Buffalo over the course of an 18-game season or 17-game season. I think that's significant enough to say. I mean, listen, let's talk about the tight ends too outside these guys. I like Sherfield more than Shakir. I think Shakir is a little bit more gadgety. I think Sherfield's more of a pure pass catcher and wide receiver. I think he'll be the next man up. If anything happens to Gabe Davis, which he hasn't played a healthy full season that often, he's probably the next man up, and he proved it in Miami. Anytime Waddle or Tyreek Hill was out, he was the next man up in Miami. That's why I like him. So he's somebody that I'm willing to take that 14, 15-round pick on if I want, because I think he's going to get a chance in there, and he's a guy that if one of those guys out, you can play him with confidence that he's going to get the ball.
I'll say Dawson, this for Shakir, and just to go the opposite on you, is we've seen the targets for both Isaiah McKenzie and Cole Beasley over the last 3 years out of the slot, and that's Shakir's role. And so that's the only reason I would say Shakir is probably over Sherfield right now for me, is and they're both deep sleepers, but we've seen the production there, and neither one of those guys are there anymore, and they desperately need a slot guy because they like that position. Well,
speaking of slot guys, like I said, Dalton Kincaid was playing out of the slot, and he did it in college. He can move all over the field too, and if they do 2 tight end sets as well, I think Shakir's the first man off the field there. I think you get your two outside guys who are going to be Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, and that's Sherfield's way onto the field too as well. Easiest path to the field. I think Shakir's got the more immediate impact because of the slot presence, but I think Sherfield's got the outside help there. But Dawson Knox, like I said, tight end 9, 500 yards, 6 touchdowns. It's not somebody they're just going to shelf. And they've already come out saying that they're going to do some 2 tight end sets. Dalton Kincaid is a pure pass-catching tight end. He's a good all-around tight end, but he's more of a pass-catching tight end. They're going to use him as a threat that way too as well. I think this team can be sneaky. I think they could be the one team that may finish with the most points scored in the NFL at the end of the season. They just have so many weapons across the board. And if without injury, they've got the easiest pathway to success with all those weapons. Them and the Chargers are like those 2 teams that they're just loaded across the board.